Hi, welcome to Laurel Best Fine Art Lessons with Laurel, and in this video I'm going to show you how to paint a watercolor wash. I hope you enjoy. So I'm starting out here by drawing a 3 by 3 inch square to work in. That's what I'm going to do my wash in. I'm going to take my number 6 brush. First I'm going to get some cobalt blue ready. Now cobalt blue is a fabulous color for skies. So I want a fair bit. You can take some fresh paint from a tube to get a lot of paint. Or you can go from dry like this. If I were painting a whole 8 by 10 sheet in one color, for example, then I would use my tube. I'm going to add some water to this and add some more cobalt. Okay, that'll be enough for my square. So when we're doing a wash, it's nice to have your work on a bit of an incline to help the paint move down. So I'm going to stick this little piece of wood underneath my board here to lift it up just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to start at the top, and when we start with a wash, we want to load the brush up with as much paint as possible. And the way I do this is I lay the whole belly of the brush right into my well of paint here to pick up as much paint as possible. And in the first row, I'm going to go in multiple times to make sure I get a lot of paint in that first row. So I have a fair amount of paint on there. I'm going to go in with my second row and bring that down. But what I'm establishing is called a bead. You can see that there's a lot of paint on the bottom here. That is called a bead. So a bead buys me time. I'll get another row in here. And it helps create a nice consistent wash. I'll get another row in here and bring that bead down my square here. And I like to paint in the same direction that I want marks to end up in. So since this is a sky, you would want horizontal marks if you're going to have any. So I'm painting horizontally. So each row I'm getting some more paint. I've got quite a big bead now, so I'm going to paint a row without adding more paint. And I try to paint at a consistent speed as well. If I sit too long in one spot, it'll be darker in that row. But for now, I'm just trying to get as consistent a wash as I can. Well, sometimes I'll start and go right to left. And I'm painting along the sides carefully, and then bringing that paint across and painting along the other side. Again, I have a large bead, so I'm going to bring that down. Get some more paint. I have a fair amount of paint here, so I'll bring the paint down. So the gravity helps bring that bead down. That's why we put our work on an incline. So at the bottom here I still have a bead, so I need to be able to lift that bead up. So for that I'm going to use my paper towel. So I'm going to pick up paint that's already on my brush and then go into this bottom line with a thirsty brush, which is really just a brush that's moist, not totally dry and not wet. And I'm going to touch gently into that to pick up paint. There. Now if you go into it too heavily, or what you can do on purpose is you can lift paint. So if I wanted to lift some grasses out of here while it's still wet, I can go in with a thirsty brush and lift some paint. Just like that. Okay? So now I'm going to show you a two-color wash. So you would use this in a situation where you have a sunset, or you might have a multicolored leaf that gradually goes from one color to another. So I'm going to do a sunset that has some blue and some red in it. So I'll have to mix up some red. So I've got my alizarin crimson up here. So I'll make a well of that. Add a bit of water to that. Okay. So there is my red. Rinse my brush. And I'm going to start with blue and then switch over to red. So I'm starting in the same way. I'm filling my brush with the cobalt blue, and I'm going to go into it multiple times. For that first row, to make sure I have a nice bead. B-E-A-D, watercolor bead. Okay, there's my first row. So about 2/3 of the way down, I'm going to start switching over to my alizarin crimson color. Okay. One more row and then I'm going to start to switch. Okay, so when I switch, I leave the blue on my brush, I touch into my alizarin, and I just touch into that bead, and then bring that bead down. And I go back in and touch into the crimson again. Put that color, I'm just touching, mixing in the bead itself at first, and then I bring that down. Now we're getting into a purpley color. With my dirty brush still, I'm going back, picking up more of the alizarin crimson, mixing it within my bead, and then bringing it down a row. Again into the crimson, putting it into the bead, and then coming down a row. Into the crimson again, mixing it in that bead, and then bringing it down a row. Back to get more crimson, mix it in the bead, and each time I do this, it gets more and more like a crimson color. So now we're into a reddish purple. Back to get more crimson, mix it within my bead, and then bring it down another row. Same thing, mix it in the bead, and then bring it down another row. This is a fairly slow process, but it produces beautiful, strong results. Back into the crimson, mix in the bead, and bring it down. So you have a very gradual change from one color to the next. Back into the crimson. So now we're pretty much at pure crimson now. And it looks like I have enough paint to finish it off. So I'm going to bring that down to the bottom. And I have a bit too much paint at the bottom, so again I'm going to blot my brush on the watercolor on the paper towel, and then pick it up, touch gently into that bead, and pick up the extra paint. Okay, so there you have a 1 and a 2 color wash. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks. See you next time. Bye.